Hey everyone, we got our first premium global exclusive card on Thursday. I talked about this yesterday in my video, and I also mentioned that I have my own ideas for crazy good global exclusive vision cards. So this is the topic of today's video. I made 10 vision cards or stats for vision cards. I am really bad at painting. I am not the artistic type. Whenever I draw things, they tend to look rather ridiculous than really cool. So, I guess we should get started right away. There's a lot of things to talk about, and this might end up being a pretty long video too. But I hope you guys enjoy this and the craziness that I came up with, especially for the top 3. So off we go. First one, number 10. It's pretty much the equivalent to what we've gotten. It's base Magic 110 and Magic and Spirit 110 card with 250 static Magic and Spirit, 50 Chain Cap mod, nothing too fancy, right? And 200% to double hand Magic for FFBE only. For the final passive, I went with a 25% Rod Imperil, as this is what most Magic users want to use regardless, and there aren't really good alternatives for magic weapons. And I also gave this Fire Dark Imperil because we do use Fire and Dark most of the times, so let's just go with the current theme of Fire and Dark. And Fire and Dark will remain the top dog DPS anyway, regardless of Knights of Grandchild, although they are light is gonna stay most likely. We don't know what global is gonna do, but light is going to remain a side gig pretty much. So let's move on to number 9. Number 9 is a healer card. Or supporter card, I should say, and more meant towards Clash of Wills. So this is 125 Spirit baseline. It activates a barrier for all party members each turn, regardless of any conditions, so that's rather nice. 25k baseline and up to 100,000 when morale is maxed. So this is meant as an auto cast pretty much. I should have probably stated as such, but this would come in handy against bosses such as Threshen or Mortarim, where you really weren't allowed to take any damage whatsoever. A nice counteract. This would also fully replenish HP and MP for all party members each turn. Another thing that may or may not be useful. Most of the time it is when you are facing the MP drains and high HP attacks, etc. Always nice to have. And the final passive would be a support only type of thing, which would increase morale by 1000, which is equivalent to the cooldown that Kresnik has in Braveshift. But this one would have it as a baseline for every turn. So that's another super strong vision card. And yeah, the theme is all of these vision cards are meant to be overpowered strong, but the further we get, the more crazy things start becoming. So let's go with number 8. And while we do ramp up things a bit, it's a 115 base attack card with 500 static attack for FFBE only. 50% LB damage increase and 135 Fire Imperil for 2 turns. And this one would activate at the start of the battle, after reviving, or 1 turn after Braveshift. It's not too crazy, but it is very strong, as you might suggest or might think. Take Sky. I took Sky for the baseline here. So you put this on Sky, for example, she gains the most valuable things for her. It's LB damage increase, it's the static attack. Well, she is a wind unit. Going fire is what we are most likely going to do for most of the Clash of Wills bosses. So this is rather nice, having a 135 Fire Emperor, right? So that's why I figured this would be a very handy card and put it on spot number 8. Number 7 is another Clash of Wills card. It baseline increases morale by 200 every turn. And now things are starting to get spicy. So the first passive is that it allows you to nullify the very first attack each turn. It also autocasts each turn to provide all status immunity for 1 turn. It is for the unit itself only though. It has to have some kind of negative effect, right? Or one downside, I should say. And the final passive unlocks an ability that increases resistance to all elements by 150% for 2 turns and increases morale by 800. And this would have a 3 turns cooldown, so you don't have that super OP thing where you have permanent 150 all element resistance. It's 2 turns and it has 3 turns cooldown, so you have to deal with it for 1 turn. I think it's a fair downside to it, but it's available turn 1, so you gain that oomph in more morale right away if you want so. I think this is a very good card indeed, and maybe one that is the most realistic out of all of those that I made today. We'll see. Number 6 is a defense card for tanks mainly. I designed this one with 125 defense. I don't think we have a 125 defense card yet, so this would be the best one indeed. It reduces damage taken, general mitigation, by 80%, permanent buff, can't be dispelled or anything, but it's FFBE only. It will also enable a permanent field effect with 300% defense increase, so that is really good, especially for those units that have LB defense scaling limit bursts, such as Maeve in base form, for example. And also unlocking a passive ability that allows you to reduce damage taken by 99% for all party members after using a limit burst. And I have been very specific here because I'm not saying who is supposed to use it. This could be any unit on the team. Say you have your Maeve, she uses that ability, and then you have Sky stacking up her limit burst once, but the boss punishes you for using a limit burst. However, due to the active ability unlock that you just used, all party members will take 99% less damage, so that the counter attack from the boss won't be too severe, and you can stack at least once safely, because I gave this a 1 turn duration and 3 turns cooldown, so you cannot spam this. I think this is a very neat idea, and I personally could see something like this as well. Maybe not the 300% defense increase, that's maybe asking a bit too much. Maybe not 99% damage reduction as well, but something along the lines might be actually balanced. I'm not a game designer, so I don't know what would be considered balanced. It's something that I would love to see because I think it's a great idea. But yeah, this is another really cool card, in my opinion. Number 5, and from here on out, things are getting really crazy, let me tell you that. So number 5 is something that I've always wanted to see, and it's a more focus on evocation and especially Esper damage. Back in the day, Espers mattered more. Esper damage, especially the evocation damage from Espers, was actually part of damage rotations. So this is what I wanted to encapsulate with this vision card. It would increase evoke magic by 100% and evoke damage by 100% instead of giving just flat out stats. It would also increase LB damage by 100% and unlock a passive ability for mages only that increases the evocation damage of all Espers by 75,000. It would also make these Esper damage abilities ignore spirits and defense entirely. For example, Behemoth has a 25,000 evocation damage ability, or his Mega Flare is 25,000 mod. With this one, it would be a 100,000 mod with full defense and spirit ignore. So it would hit super hard, and that is what I was aiming for. Also, for all the other mages on the party, the vision card would unlock an active ability that enables a field that increases all magic damage by 25% flat out. This would count towards elemental magic, non-elemental magic, just any magic type attack would gain 25% more damage. I'd love to see Espers become relevant again, and not just for killers and Esper stats, but for actual damage. And this is what I was going for with this. Number 4. Truth be told, I think this is my favorite design of all cards that I made today. And I think it speaks volume that this is only at number 4. It's a supporter unit card, 125 base spirit, 500 morale per turn, and unlocks 2 active abilities. 1, it allows you to absorb all incoming damage on the very next turn with a 5-turn cooldown, but available on turn 1. 2, the second ability you gain is deal damage equal to all absorbed damage with SPR scaling. So if the boss dealt like, I don't know, 5 billion damage to you, you throw all that damage back at the boss with SPR scaling. I don't know how you would balance this out, like do a 10 to 1 scaling due to the high defense and spirit the boss has. But with the numbers done right, this could be a very, very clever tool. You could purposefully equip units for super, super bad gear or no gear at all in their base form, for example, to have them take as much damage as possible just to throw it back at the boss. I think it's a super cool mechanic that plays around with both sides of the field, right? So you counter what the boss is doing by doing what the boss does, damage. I think it adds more depth to the game and also more stress on the developers because they have to think around this mechanic, but I love it. Just absorb the damage, throw it back at the boss. I'd love to see a mechanic like this sometimes in FFBE. Number 3, it is getting crazier as we speak. So this is another, well, defense spirit. The main way I went with this was a debuffer unit, as is evident. So this one increases morale by 1000 per turn, which is very strong, maybe too much, but who knows. It unlocks a passive ability that reduces defense and spirit by 90% for 5 turns at the start of the battle, after reviving, or 1 turn after Brave Shift. Might be a little bit too strong, maybe 2 turns would have been enough, but I wanted it to be kind of permanent. And the active ability is that you can copy all bosses' actions and allow them to be used for the very next turn. That means you would have, if the boss did 10 abilities, you would be able to do all 10 abilities the boss just did and redirect them basically onto him. 3 turns cooldown, available turn 1. I think that's a cool mechanic. So if the boss does crazy things to you, well, Uno reverse card. That's what I was going with this. I think it's a cool design too. Number 2 is a mage card. 200% true double hand magic, 500 static magic, and unlocks a passive, which increases LB damage by 300% for 3 turns, which triggers at the start of the battle, after reviving, or 1 turn after Brave Shift. And the active ability, also mage only, when the boss casts a support skill, be it damage mitigation, for example, defense and spirit increase, what have you, you interrupt it and all other casts that follow it. Meaning, take the current anima, for example. I think the boss does the mitigation buff first. So you interrupt that, and if the boss then would deal, say, any kind of damaging abilities, non-elemental especially, you would also nullify all these casts, meaning you do have 1 more free turn. What you're doing basically is you have the boss skip his entire turn. That is what I was going with. It's a time mage concept, one thing that Roka already does to your own party by accelerating cooldowns. This one takes it up a notch, accelerates the pace of the game by having the boss skip a turn entirely, basically. And it also allows mages to be a little bit more relevant by having more magic, more options for killers, etc., and also, well, 300% LB boost, because that's something most mages don't have. Angela has it, but Angela is on a whole different tier than every other mage. So I think without counting Angela, this would be a very, very strong mage card. And it's outright overpowered if you can just have the boss skip a turn entirely. And number one, what's crazier than having the boss skip a turn? Well, it's when you do things even better. So, it's a 130 base attack card, adds 1000 static attack, FFBE only. It unlocks an ability that increases your LB mod by 50x, so even better than what Tyvus's STMR is. It increases fire amplification by 50% and increases LB damage by 300% and increases attack by 350%. I know, it's downright overpowered. And the unit I was thinking of here was obviously Sky, who would double dip into a 100x mod increase here. But the passive ability you unlock for attackers only is when the boss attacks the wearer, meaning the unit that is having this vision card, you interrupt all other actions and skip a turn. And this one would activate at the start of the battle, so the first turn the boss does nothing basically to you if the unit is being attacked, but gearing for passive provoke makes this easy. After reviving, or 2 turns after Brave Shift. I didn't quite want to make it 1 turn after Brave Shift, because with perfect Brave Shift you would have the boss skip every single turn on odd turns, and that would be a little bit too strong. I understood that, so I made it 2 turns. Still, this is the craziest card one could think of, or I could think of right now, or when I thought of it. This was like, yeah, making the boss skip most of his turns is kind of ridiculously strong, and it would pretty much be very, very tiresome for the devs to figure out how to deal with that. But yeah, I think this is one of the craziest cards one could do. Again, my personal favorite is the number 4 card, with the absorption effect and throwing it back at the boss. I love that design. So yeah, and that's pretty much it. Those were my 10 ideas for premium global exclusive vision cards. Thank you all for watching, and now it's your turn. Write it down in the comments what vision card passive abilities or what have you, what ideas you guys have for vision cards, because I think that's a cool topic. The new vision card enabled this discussion that I would love to have with you guys and see where we can elevate things into and what possibilities there are. I think there's a lot to be done in FFBE, lots of room to grow for the game and the gameplay especially. So I'm hoping for some cool ideas from you guys. Anyway, that's it from me. Have a wonderful rest of the Sunday evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you're from. And see you next time. Bye bye.